Have you ever wondered where people get their protein on a plant-based diet? Honestly, it's not as difficult as it might seem. Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Pelletier with Live Grow Green, and today we are going to talk about vegan protein alternatives. So before we start this video, if you're interested in plant-based diet and lifestyle, feel free to subscribe and make sure you hit the bell so you get notified every time we publish new plant-based lifestyle content on Thursdays. So where do people get their protein from on a plant-based diet? There are honestly so many different sources of protein out there that it's really interesting when you start looking at it. It's not just in things like beans and tempeh, tofu, but it's also in certain grains like quinoa. There are a lot of different sources out there that you can actually get a significant amount of protein from. So today in this video, what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually look at the most commonly used kind of meat alternatives from a protein standpoint, rather than just focusing on the foods that have the most protein in it. So I find it's more helpful to focus on these most commonly used foods because these are the foods that you're going to find in recipes that you're actually going to be utilizing most often. So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at these foods and we're going to look at actually different ways to cook them and different ways to sub it in so you can start going plant-based right now. So the first food that we're going to look at is my absolute favorite is chickpeas, which are also known as garbanzo beans. So basically per a cup of cooked dried chickpeas, you're getting about 14 grams of protein, and it's honestly a great substitute for chicken and turkey. One of my favorite things about chickpeas is how absolutely versatile they are when it comes to cooking. So there are really so many different things that you can do, from just dry roasting them to making hummus to making full-on veggie burgers, or even ground up like dried chickpea sandwiches that it's really great as a chicken or tuna sandwich alternative. Really the sky is the limit when it comes to chickpeas. There are just so many different things that you can do, from really lazy day meals to more adventurous experiments. Really it's up to you in terms of your cooking level, but really chickpeas are a great way to get some protein, and they are honestly a lot of fun to cook with. The second one that we're going to look at is lentils. So per cup of dried cooked lentils, you're getting about 17 grams of protein, and honestly this is a really great substitute for red meat. One of my favorite things to cook with lentils is a vegan ground hamburger, which is basically just lentils, soy sauce, and cornstarch. It is a super simple recipe, and really because lentils already kind of look like hamburger when you cook it up, and it kind of has the same texture, it works out really well, especially for people who are just starting out, who might have some issues getting over that mental hurdle of not having meat on their plate. So the next alternative that we're going to talk about is beans. There are so many different beans out there, and they all kind of have their own protein count. So for this one, we're just going to do black beans, which is one of the more common beans. So per cup of cooked dried black beans, you're getting about 15 grams of protein. And really this makes a great substitute for red or white meat. So beans are probably the most versatile item on this list because there are so many different types of beans and there are so many ways to incorporate them into your diet. From making more traditional dishes like burritos to making patties out of beans or meatballs or even brownies. Yes, it is a thing making brownies out of black beans. There are really so many different interesting ways to incorporate it into your diet. So the next thing that I want to talk about is tempeh. So per cup, you're getting about 33 grams of protein, and is really a great substitute for fish or chorizo. Both tempeh and tofu are made from soybeans, but they look and taste completely different. So instead of looking like this smooth cube, tempeh looks more like a bubbly rectangle. and it makes a really great alternative for fish and chorizo. My personal favorite is to make a little bit of vegan chorizo with tempeh, soy sauce, cornstarch, and liquid smoke. And honestly, just adding that to a Buddha bowl or adding that to a burrito, it comes out so good. So the next thing that I want to talk about is jackfruit. So jackfruit doesn't have a whole lot of protein. You're getting about 2 to 3 grams per cup, which really isn't a whole lot, especially compared to the rest of the items on these lists. But you'll often see this as a substitute for pulled pork. So I have to be honest, I've been plant-based for over 3 years now, and I've hated jackfruit for most of it, which I think I might be the only person to say that, since everyone who's tried it loves jackfruit. But for me, it was always a struggle to like it. I could never buy the fresh. I always had to buy it in this pre-packaged, pre-marinated form. And to me, it just didn't taste right because it was always overly juicy. Like there was way too much marinade in it. And to me, it just did not taste right. And I recently found canned jackfruit, and honestly, I love jackfruit now. I get it. But really the canned version comes out so much crispier, and it just tastes exactly like pulled pork in terms of the texture. So if you're trying to kind of recreate that, I would strongly recommend going with the canned if you've had trouble in the past liking the pre-marinated jackfruit that's out there and you can't buy the fresh. So the last alternative that I want to talk about is the processed vegan meat. So this is the Beyond Meat, this is Impossible Meat. These are all the kind of vegan alternatives that you're gonna find in the frozen section. So for the protein count, we're gonna go with Beyond Meat because that is the most popular one right now. So for about 8 ounces of Beyond Meat, you're getting 40 grams of protein, and this is a great substitute for red meat. So I wanted to talk about this one last because it is honestly the most expensive alternative on this list. And while I am a huge fan of Beyond Meat, there are honestly so many other alternatives out there that you can do that are much more affordable, and honestly, they taste really great too. So if you're just starting out and you're on a budget, really having Beyond Meat all the time is not going to be feasible for you. I'm not saying it doesn't taste great, but the cost is up there. So really you can make any other alternatives on this list so much more affordably than having Beyond Meat all the time, or really any other alternative for that matter. I know I'm kind of picking on Beyond Meat here, but really the price of processed vegan food is it's pretty high comparatively. So if you're looking for more of an affordable option, dried lentils, dried beans are gonna be the way to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notified every time we publish a new video on Thursdays. Until next time.